Greetings, upstanders. Dr. O here, and it's been about a week since Mayor Brandon Johnson of Chicago was on Morning Joe talking about crime and the like, and they got into an intense debate about things. And I find it interesting that a week after the interview happened, Morning Joe Joe Scarborough pretty much every day has been saying that whenever they go and talk about crime, that we have the mayor of Chicago on, and he could not answer the question. He refused to answer the question. He danced around the question about whether he would take additional police on the streets. And that's simply not true. So why keep going back to a narrative that's clearly there on video? Earlier, there was a conversation about, Wes Moore, and Trump said that Wes Moore said he was the best governor in history and so on and so forth. And then, people rolled the video and so that conversation never happened. Like, there's actual video to show what happened. And the fact of the matter is that Mayor Johnson said that. Look, I'll read exactly. Well, first of all, why don't you watch it? Then I'll read it so that you can understand exactly what it is that Mayor Johnson said.
1,000 more cops on the streets of Chicago.
I don't believe that we should narrow it down to just police officers, Joe, is what I'm saying. That is an antiquated approach. I'm saying we've invested in detectives.
Mr. Mayor, are you hearing what I'm saying? I'm agreeing with you that all of these other social programs are extraordinarily important. I just need a yes or a no, and then this will be the last time I ask. If you get all of those other social programs that 800 million that New York City does, Los Angeles, other people do with great success, would an additional 5,000 cops on the streets in Chicago help complement those programs to make Chicago safer?
Look, we are working hard to make sure that our police department is fully supported. I don't believe that just simply putting out an arbitrary number around police officers is the answer. What I'm saying is policing and affordable housing. It's policing and mental and behavioral health care services. It's policing and youth employment. It's a full package. Of course, we want to make sure that our police department is fully supported. That's why I've invested in our Detectives Bureau, because what we have seen in the city of Chicago, when we solve crime, it acts and serves as a deterrent. It's policing and all of the other efforts that we're doing. Here's the last thing that I'll say to that. The federal government could work stronger to coordinate with my police department to get guns off the streets of Chicago. We've seen these coordination efforts work. Just a couple of weeks ago, the ATF working with my police department, we removed over 150 guns off the streets of Chicago that were trafficked in through Mississippi and Indiana. No one is saying that police officers don't play an incredible role in driving safety. They play an absolute pivotal role in that. But we have asked law enforcement to do too much. Police officers are being asked to be social workers, counselors. What I'm simply saying is, if we're going to build safe and affordable cities across America, the one thing that safe communities all have in common, they invest in people. We have a poverty issue in the city of Chicago and cities across America. Police officers alone will not put food on the table. Police officers alone will not guarantee a high quality education. Police officers alone won't drive down unemployment. We need all of it. The President of the United States of America and the federal government could restore Medicaid. They could restore SNAP. They could stop defunding our public education system. Here's the most important point here.
So if you actually look at the transcript of what was said, he literally says, and I'm reading this to you, all right? He says, and look, they went back and forth, and Joe said, I'm going to ask you for the fifth time because Mayor Johnson, started talking. He talked about other things like affordable housing and all of these other types of things. And he told Joe that he thought this was an antiquated view of just having more police. But then to directly answer it, he said, look, we are working hard to make sure that our police department is fully supported. I don't believe that just simply putting out an arbitrary number, because Joe said 5,000 police officers, putting out an arbitrary number around police officers is the answer. What I'm saying is policing and affordable housing. It's policing and mental and behavioral health care services. It's policing and youth employment. It's a full package. Of course, we want to make sure that our police department is fully supported. That's why I've invested in our Detectives Bureau, because what we have seen in the city of Chicago, when we solve crime, it serves as a deterrent. It's policing and all of the other efforts that we're doing. And then he says that the federal government could work stronger and work in a better way with him and his police. How is that not answering the question? You watched it, you heard it, I read the transcript, and to sit here and basically say, hey, I don't give a damn what you said, that you didn't answer the question, because this is a and you had to be there, I guess, and be paying attention then again to the 90s. This is 1994 crime bill language being put out all over again. The idea of Democrats not being tough on crime, Dukakis and Willie Horton, and at that election, like they're and Joe was running with that. And yeah, he's a conservative. I get it, from that era. Blah, I get it. But people at the very least need to be factually accurate in what they're saying. And this idea that every time crime is brought up, Democrats just cite statistics and call it a day, it's not true. Whether we're talking about the mayor of Baltimore, whether we're talking about mayor of LA, whether we're talking about these other black mayors who have been targeted, they talk about the importance of community policing. They talk about the importance of having relations with policing. They talk about the importance of summer jobs and all of that. Now, to Joe's credit, he did say that all of those other services are necessary, but it always goes back to the policing. It always goes back to the policing and just throwing more cops on the street. And that is a recipe for disaster in our communities, because many of these officers are not trained to work for our communities. They don't come from our communities, and they're coming in with ulterior motives and other agendas. And we also know that there have been so many instances of white supremacists who are joining the military and the police so they can get away with shooting black and brown people. And the Justice Department, through Harmeet Dillon, quote unquote, Civil Rights Division, got rid of all of those cases that were targeting people who were doing that. So you can kind of get into law enforcement, be a white supremacist, and damn near have free reign. But this idea that you either have to say yes or no to more police, and that shows that you are actually tough on crime, it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. And people are saying, well, and they're like, these mayors and these governors, they should, work with Trump, and they should reach out and say, let's work together. Why do we keep saying this in the media? And this is on all of these networks we're seeing. Why did they keep saying this in the media? Trump has made it clear he does not want to work with anybody. You want to work with Mayor Bowser? You think Mayor Bowser is down for Jeanine Pirro saying that we allow open carry in D.C. now? And is not leading to prosecutions of people carrying, long guns and rifles and all of that? That's what Jeanine Pirro's doing in this group of people and an administration or regime that's actually saying it wants to bring crime down? How's that working? What's his name? Former governor of Ohio, Kasich, was on MSNBC, and he was like, people should just, stop the rhetoric on both sides, and people should, reach out to Trump and say, come walk with me, let's talk. And then it was brought up, who was it? It was on Reverend Al Sharpton's show, and Reverend Al Sharpton said, well, Governor Moore did that. And then Kasich was like, well, but he did it publicly. He shouldn't have done it publicly. Should have done it privately. Send a letter, request a meeting. Like, seriously? First of all, I believe that Moore has done that. And then he said, and if you get turned down, then you can say you have the higher ground. Damn, the higher ground? I believe in higher ground. I believe in finding common ground. But I also believe that mayors and governors need to do the work necessary to protect their citizens, even if it means protecting them from the Trump administration. And Kasich was like, when I was governor, we did this and we did that. And Al Sharpton was like, you didn't have, the president at the time targeting your cities, all of the name calling and so on and so forth. So folks need to be really, just like Trump's not going to do anything at Putin, and people keep saying, well, Trump should. He's never going to do anything. And Trump has no desire to work with mayors. He has no blue state mayors. He has no desire to work with blue state governors. That's why he's sending in the National Guard. That's why he's sending in ICE. These guys have talked about partnerships from the beginning. And every governor, whether it's Pritzker, whether it's Newsom, whether it's Moore, all of them have said, Hochul, all of them have said at different times, just like we'll work with the president. He's the president of the United States as needed and when necessary. When we disagree with his policies, we're going to speak up on it. He does not want that. Pam Bondi does not want that. Kash Patel does not want cooperation. So this is another narrative that needs to be dropped from the media, in addition to dropping much of this conversation about crime in general, because you're going along with Trump, who's distracting you from all of his other issues, like a failed economy, like not being able to end any wars. He has not ended 6 wars in 6 months. It's a lie. It's not true in any way, shape, or form. Like the tariffs, like what's going on with the CDC, and like 9 former directors of the CDC coming out saying that Kennedy Jr. is a threat to the health of all people in the United States. Like, those are the things that should be talking about. But Trump knows. Trump, who also said he's about to be meeting with Mike Johnson to discuss a crime bill. Again, going back to the 1994 omnibus crime bill, y'all really need to study that and what happened during that time and how detrimental and problematic it was. There were Democrats who supported it, Congressional Black Caucus, Biden, Hillary, obviously, Republicans. I believe it passed unanimously when the vote was taken. And many people have said, we were wrong. We see the consequences of it. Trump wants to bring all of that back in right now. And he knows that if he gives enough white folks crime, if he gives enough suburban people crime, if he gives them that narrative, they won't pay attention to all of the other stuff that's going on in their lives that are being destroyed by this administration, from tariffs to health. And so I wish the media would get honest. I wish Joe Scarborough would be more accurate with the interview that he did, and just read the transcript that I gave you. There is not a simple answer to this, and just saying yes or no, give me more, please. I mean, that's not it. That's not how Mayor Scott in Baltimore is bringing down crime. It's not how any of these guys are bringing down crime. And there's never a conversation about getting rid of the guns that are coming into the community. Trump got rid of the Department of Gun Violence like the first or second day he got into the administration. At Chicago, as Mayor Johnson said in Chicago, most of the guns that are coming in are coming from Indiana. Where's the conversation about gun trafficking? Where's the conversation about making ghost guns illegal like Biden wanted to do? None of that is happening. And so this idea of just more troops, call it a day, that's not where we're going to go. And so I applaud Mayor Johnson for the way he responded. I think that, and when they came back from the break and Joe was talking about we have a spirited debate, what did Mika say? She said, I'm with the mayor on this one. I'm with the mayor. And if Joe could get out, and some of these other folks or some of the other guests who were on and who are still on could get out of this saying that these guys are running away from crime. He literally said when detectives are able to close cases, that's a deterrent for crime. He also talked about the billions of dollars that Trump has taken out of the budget for crime prevention, for community intervention services. Took $1 billion out of the DC budget. Part of it was that for that as well. So come on, y'all. Let's just call a thing a thing. Trump has no desire to work with mayors. Trump has no desire to work with governors, not these black mayors or these governors and mayors in blue states. And he has no desire to call out the crime rates in red states. They're not going to do that. This is a fundamentally violent man for violent mindset who believes in incarceration, in part because it's going to help his prison industrial complex buddies, who are some of his biggest funders. So I wish that these news networks would get real about that, call a thing, stop saying that these mayors and governors need to play the higher ground and they've done all of that. He doesn't listen because he doesn't want that. And he's setting up a lot of things to be happening in this country come another potential January 6th. But really, at the end of the day, y'all, if the media would be honest, the goal of the media right now isn't about both sides, right? It's about just telling the truth. It's about just telling the truth. And people want to spend more time condemning these mayors for the work that they're doing, now work that they're going to do at one hand tied behind their back because they're losing funding, and talking about Democrats are just weak on crime. It's just not true. And it's like we have to say that crime is a problem before we can have any meaningful discussion. So y'all saw the interview. I read the transcript. Y'all heard it. Let's have it honest. And I guarantee in a week, they're still going to be talking about Brandon Johnson didn't want to answer the question about more police on the streets of Chicago. And it's just not true, as you can see for yourself. We need more honesty in media, and we need more honesty from our hosts. We need more honesty from our pundits. And let's just call a thing a thing. What do you think? Peace.